Good evening. This is CTV News for Wednesday, March 1st. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Valone. Glad to have you with us tonight. Well, Maryland's current pretrial system gives a clear advantage to those with monetary resources and a distinct disadvantage to those without access. That's according to a recent study by Common Cause. The Coalition for a Safe and Just Maryland cited the report during a press conference this afternoon, calling on the General Assembly to reform the bail bond system.
For far too long, we've been working under a system that in practice is unconstitutional. It tramples upon the presumption of innocence, it's costly, and the fact is, it's dangerous.
This guy was arrested on his job for failure to pay insurance. His wife had to knock on my door at 8 o'clock in the morning 3 days ago and ask me to give her a ride to the jail so she could bail him out. She couldn't imagine what she was going to do to replace the $300 that she had to take from her rent to pay her husband's bail because he is the sole provider of her family.
When chairs receive substantial contributions and benefit directly from the money that they receive from the bail bond lobby, that's an opportunity for them to see a conflict of interest, and they ought to consider disqualifying themselves from hearing and voting on these cases.
SB 880 and HB 1390 would finalize a recent Maryland Court of Appeals decision by requiring the necessary funding to reform the bail bond system. Well, the use of heroin and opioids in Maryland is so bad that the governor has declared a state of emergency. Governor Larry Hogan today announced $50 million in new funding to combat the problem. Hogan says heroin and opioid deaths in the state have doubled over the last year. From January to September 2016, there were 918 heroin overdose fatalities. During the same period, 270 people died of overdoses from prescription opioids.
The former national president of the NAACP may be vying for a top political post in Maryland next year. Ben Jealous telling reporters this week that he is considering running for governor. He would be a progressive political challenger to Republican Governor Larry Hogan. Now, back in 2015, Jealous decided not to run for Barbara Mikulski's vacated U.S. Senate seat. Jealous spent 5 years as the leader of the NAACP. While most Marylanders don't have to worry about access to fresh, healthy food choices, many others do. Members of the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus holding an event to bring awareness to the issue of food deserts. Lawmakers wanted to hear from experts who are working on eliminating food deserts in hopes of enacting legislation that would help address the issue.
I'm really interested in helping our legislators to understand why it is that these things matter and how they're linked to other environmental justice issues. A lot of times we think of food as just a nutrition issue or a health issue or a behavior issue.
Food deserts are the underlying health issue that creates other health issues. It compounds. If people don't have access to fresh, healthy food, they do not have access to health.
No, we can't make someone bring a business there, but what we can do is bring awareness. And what we can do is try to bring some type of incentives, tax credits, other things to try to draw those companies to open up shop in those deserts.
The federal government defines a food desert. At least 33% of a defined area's population must live more than a mile from a supermarket or large grocery store.
The Less Testing, More Learning Act passes with little debate in the Maryland House of Delegates. The bill would limit the amount of classroom time that school districts can spend on testing. The 2% limit equates to about 21 hours in elementary and middle schools and just over 23 hours in high schools. Education advocates and Governor Larry Hogan have expressed concern about the amount of time students are subjected to testing. A similar bill was passed last year by the House but died on the Senate floor.
A GoFundMe page has been started for the Clinton teen who allegedly shot and killed his by his mother last week. Chris Perry's older sister Alexis is reaching out to the public in hopes of getting some support, raising enough money to cover the cost of his funeral and burial. Now, the senior who attended Grace Brethren Christian School was shot in what police are calling a domestic homicide. His mother, Angelique Chase, was arrested and charged in the crime. She's being held at the Department of Corrections on a no-bond status. Perry's classmates are also helping to raise raise money by holding a bake sale tomorrow at the school. You can find his GoFundMe page at gofundme.com. Search Christopher Perry or Christopher's Homegoing. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Vallone.